Welcome to the 700 Club. The Middle East is preparing for an attack on Israel by Iran and its proxies. The U.S. is desperately pursuing diplomatic efforts to restrain war. It's also building a coalition to defend Israel.
An attack by Iranian-backed militia on a U.S. airbase in Iraq is increasing tensions. At the same time, Tehran is strengthening its relationship with Russia. Chris Mitchell has the latest from Jerusalem.
In Tel Aviv, CENTCOM Commander General Michael Kurilla met with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. His mission? To oversee a coalition to defend Israel from an expected attack by Iran and its proxies. Meanwhile, in Tehran, the Secretary of Russia's Security Council met with Iran's president, who described Russia as a key and strategic ally, and said improving relations with Russia is among Iran's top foreign policy priorities. Iran's foreign minister also blamed the U.S. for supporting Israel's war against Hamas.
Moreover, the U.S. should not provide Israel with arms or weapons of mass destruction. We believe that had it not been for the U.S. government's assistance, Israel would never have taken such a risk.
On Monday, several American servicemen were wounded when Iranian-backed militias attacked the U.S. al-Assad air base in Iraq. The U.S. State Department is urging Iran to de-escalate.
We have been sending consistent messages through our diplomatic engagements, encouraging people to communicate to the government of Iran that escalation is not in their interest, and that we will defend Israel from attacks, and that escalation does not serve Iran's interest.
Most of Israel right now is anxiously awaiting whether or not there will be an attack, what it will be like, and whether the IDF has the capacity to defend it.
Alex Trayman, Jerusalem bureau chief of JNS.org, believes the U.S. is sending the wrong signal to Iran.
It seems clear that the United States wants to help Israel to defend itself. It doesn't want Israel to absorb large attacks on its home front. But at the same time, they are willing to let Israel fight but not win the war. And it's giving Iran the sense that they maybe don't have a green light, but they at least have a yellow light to go ahead and attack Israel.
Trayman believes the U.S. needs to send a different message.
What they should be saying is, you will not attack, because if you attack, we will consider it like an attack on the United States, and we will punish you severely. Right now, there is not a very credible military threat, so there is no deterrence against Iran.
In light of the peril Israel is facing now, 300 Christians from Indonesia came to pray in Jerusalem's Garden Tomb. They came to intercede for protection for the Jewish state and its people. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, I hope our foreign policy establishment wakes up to the danger here. And it's not just what they're doing right now. There are decades of this where they're trying to have some kind of policy of containment. And it goes back, again, decades. But particularly in the Obama administration, where they released so much money, and they said, we're going to try diplomacy, and we're going to see if we can stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. In this administration, the Secretary of State said they're weeks away from getting enough fissionable material to create a nuclear weapon. And so all of this policy of containment is not working. Now, when it's a desperate situation, when they have vowed we're going to attack Israel, and we're going to do it in force, and we're mobilizing everything we have, we're going to be specific to do it on the 9th of Av. All of these things are in place. Now is the time to say containment's off the table. If you attack Israel, get ready, because we're going to defend her, and we're going to defend her in force. You can't be on both sides on this, and this isn't a time to get wobbly. This is the time to send a very clear message that we stand with Israel. But we're not seeing that out of Washington right now. The vice president is famous for essentially lecturing Netanyahu that, this isn't a binary situation. It absolutely is a binary situation. You have terrorist attacks against Israel. October 7th is not a binary. Either you are for Israel in that or you're for Hamas. There's no middle ground. When Hezbollah launches rockets into northern Israel, there's no middle ground there either. Are you seriously saying that it's okay to fire a rocket into a soccer pitch and kill so many children? Is that okay? Does Israel not have a right to defend itself? Does Israel not have a right to go after all the architects who created this terror network, who launched October 7th and are vowing to repeat it again and again and again? Now, let's be clear. Let's be absolutely clear on the world stage. We stand with Israel. And if you attack Israel, get ready, because we're not going to contain that. We're going to go right after you. If we have that kind of clear message, well, then everyone in the Middle East will respect it because of the strength behind it. But you can't, like Obama, say, we're drawing a line in the sand. If you cross this line, get ready. And the line got crossed and nothing happened. We can't have that kind of foreign policy. We either stand behind our allies, stand with them in their time of need, or we need to get off the table here. This isn't a time for wobbling. This is a time to be absolutely strong and very clear in communications. In other news, investors are hoping stocks will rebound today. Yesterday had a massive sell-off. Ephraim Graham has that story and more from the CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, we're following encouraging news from Asia, and it's the reason behind the hope the market will get back on track after Wall Street's worst trading day in 2 years. The concerns driving the market dive, growing worries about recession. Despite the drama, analysts say individual investors should not panic. John Jessup has more now from Washington.
Tuesday's early trading overseas is giving investors hope, a day after the nightmarish sell-off. Monday's market meltdown producing Wall Street's worst trading day in 2 years. The Dow Jones Industrial Average shedding 1,000 points, down 2.6%, and both the S&P 500 and NASDAQ saw declines of at least 3%. Tech stocks taking the biggest hit, the so-called Magnificent Seven losing more than $650 billion in value. While the news triggered serious concerns of an economic slowdown or even a recession, experts warn there's no need to panic just yet.
A lot of the market is up quite substantially so far this year. So in order to put today's declines in context, it's not as bad as it could have been.
On CBN's Faith Nation, Bankrate's Mark Hamrick explained Friday's dismal U.S. jobs report spooked investors into what's called a risk-off trade.
Really, that means they're just trying to take some money off the table, out of the market, and it remains to be seen whether this is something that's more serious than what might otherwise appear. So, we'll see whether the sell-off is overdone. We'll have a lot more economic data to wade through. Right now, it feels a little bit more like a market event than it feels like an economic event.
Some economists predict this might prompt the Fed to make deeper interest rate cuts than previously expected when it meets next month, while speculation of taking quick action in an emergency meeting seems less likely. So, for the average American, what does this mean for anyone with investments like 401ks?
The major averages are down about 5% over the past 5 days. That feels like a lot in a short amount of time, but those same key averages are up 10, 15% over the past year, and that means that over the past year, you're still doing better.
While economists blame the jobs report, high interest rates, and tensions in the Middle East as causes for the sell-off, the 2024 campaign sees the candidates laying blame elsewhere.
Dow Jones is down about 1,010 points.
That is called Bidenomics.
Former President Donald Trump labeling the market meltdown the Kamala crash, highlighting the White House incumbent effect.
But in some ways, she's a new factor, and it's unclear to me how voters would process her role in creating this economy. And so I think surely this will create a lot of angst, but I'm not necessarily convinced it will cut one way or the other as it relates to voters.
Voters consistently rank the economy as one of their very top issues this election cycle, and with talk of the recession back on the table, it doesn't appear that'll be changing anytime soon. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
Some big news in this election cycle. Vice President Kamala Harris has chosen her running mate. The Associated Press reports it is Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. He'll take the stage with Harris at a rally in Philadelphia tonight. Walz is a retired teacher and six-term former congressman. The two will embark on a tour of battleground states, including Michigan, Wisconsin, and North Carolina. Vice President Harris officially became the Democratic nominee Monday evening after the DNC announced the results of an online vote by the delegates. I want to turn now to the southeast, where residents are bracing for historic flooding as Tropical Storm Debbie moves through. Forecasters predict the system will drop unprecedented amounts of rain on Georgia and the Carolinas. This comes after the storm came ashore as a Category 1 hurricane in Florida yesterday. Our Lori Johnson is on this story.
Tropical Storm Debbie is expected to dump record-setting amounts of rain along coastal regions of Florida up through North Carolina, anywhere between 20 and 30 inches. That's more than the previous high in 2018 from Tropical Storm Florence. The historic city of Charleston, one of several preparing for what could be historic flooding as millions of people along the southeast deal with the slow-moving storm.
It may be that this is the most water we've seen for a long time. Maybe. We don't know. So stay alert, stay tuned, and stay safe.
Residents and businesses are fortifying their properties with sandbags, while police are barricading streets in vulnerable areas. South of Charleston, a tornado damaging property as continued threats of twisters throughout the region persist. In Savannah, the mayor issuing a curfew, saying the deluge could mean, quote, obliteration for parts of the city.
This type of rain hovering over us, coming with the intensity that they tell us that it's coming, it's going to catch a whole lot of people by surprise.
Debbie made landfall along the Gulf Coast of Florida Monday as a Category 1 hurricane, packing sustained winds of 80 miles per hour. Storm surge and more than a foot of rain left streets underwater in places like Gainesville and Sarasota, where authorities declared flash flood emergencies. Tens of thousands of homes lost power. The Florida National Guard performed hundreds of high water rescues in flooded neighborhoods like this one, saving an elderly man and his dog. The storm is blamed for at least 5 deaths, including a 13-year-old Florida boy killed inside a mobile home hit by a falling tree.
The young man was asleep in his bedroom, and that's where the major impact was.
Near Tampa, police say the driver of this truck lost control of his tractor trailer and it plunged into the water below. Meanwhile, one boater is telling his survival story.
It's a washing machine, basically, is what it is in the Gulf.
Nathan Thomas and his friend were rescued off Florida's Gulf Coast in 20-foot waves. He said the storm came quicker than expected, and they lost the sail on their sailboat.
I knew that if the Coast Guard didn't get us, we probably had less than a 50% chance of surviving.
CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground in Georgia and will begin making damage assessments of the hardest hit areas along the southeast coast. They are prepared to provide much needed relief to residents who will be struggling to deal with the damage after the storm moves through. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
It's clear already the recovery will be long. Gordon?
Yeah, the flooding is absolutely horrific. If you want to participate in a recovery effort, you can support Operation Blessing. It's our disaster relief fund. A lot of different ways you can give. You can call us, 1-800-700-7000. You can write to us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Just put Disaster Relief Fund on the memo line of a check. You can go to cbn.com. There's a way you can designate your gift on the giving page. Or you can text us, OBDR, to 71777. Be a part of it. Help those in need. When disasters strike, we want to strike back with love and compassion to let people know we love them. God loves them. You can be a part of it. Call us. 1-800-700-7000.